My name is Anthony Ayeni. Today, I will be interviewing Natalie Martinez, lead reporter and news anchor for NBC Channel 5 News. Natalie, I first just want to start by saying thank you for joining me for this interview. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and your busy schedule just to be a part of this interview. I just recently watched you on the 5 o'clock news, and we just talked about this right before I started recording, but it was just amazing to see you go to work. Like literally, I started watching the news at like 5:06, and then here we are at like 5:45.
Yeah, that's how it happens in news. Every minute is something different. So it's really great to be with you today.
Thank you. So to start off, my first question to you will be can you please tell me about your upbringing?
My upbringing. How early do you want me to start?
I mean, just as far as you want to go. It can be from like a kid, like childhood till now.
Well, that was the fun stuff. So I am Ukrainian and Dominican. My mom came from Ukraine when she was 3 to the US. My dad came from Dominican Republic when he was 8 or 9. And they met in New York. And so this is the mix you get. So I spent most of my early years in upstate New York then, and then moved to Omaha, Nebraska for 10 years while my grandmother, so we could help take care of her. She was transferred with Western Electric. She had a heart condition. So mom and I went because mom and dad weren't married. I was born on Valentine's Day. I was truly a love child born in the 70s. They never got married or anything. So mom, me, and Baba, that's grandmother in Ukrainian, we were the little trio. And so we spent a lot of time in the Midwest, and I went back to school, to college at SUNY Buffalo State University. I had checked out, man, so many different places, from Pepperdine to, I went to Boulder, I went to, from literally coast to coast, and then several on the East Coast because I had so many family. But my father, being in Buffalo and not knowing me very well, said, I'll help you pay for college if you come here. Well, I wasn't great with finance, but I knew that if he'll help me with college and I only have this much of an academic scholarship, it's probably the wise thing for me to do. And it was wonderful. So I went to college there, and that took me all the way from pretty much birth to 18.
Oh, that's an amazing story. So you definitely have a lot of perspectives, just being around the country at a young age and being able to be exposed to much. And like with going all into that, what kind of led to you going into broadcasting and just news in general?
That is a good question, because that wasn't my first intention. My dad, when I met him, I was 16. I introduced myself to him, and we've been, I had the good fortune of having him in my life since then. But he was a dentist at the time in Buffalo. He wanted either myself or my 2 brothers or sister. I call them my brother and sister, but he had a wife that he married after he and my mom had me. So they're really half brothers and a half sister, but none of them seemed to want to head in the direction of dentistry. So he was really pushing hard for me as the first of his children to go to school for dentistry. And I said, well, I don't have much, in terms of my final goal. I didn't have an idea of really what I wanted to do going into college that was strong enough. I didn't have, journalism on my radar at the time. I was interested in it, but it wasn't something I thought I would do as a full-fledged career. In fact, I thought, well, if he's got a business he wants to hand over, again, I was very much, driven by finances, and, having grown up, it was pretty tight for my mom and my grandma and me, and mom worked 2 or sometimes 3 jobs to help me get to, a ballet class and things that all the other kids were doing. And we took care of Baba too at the same time. So my idea was, okay, do what can make you some money so you can be self-sufficient. And I didn't want to rely on anybody. I wanted to do it myself. I thought, okay, well, that seems to make sense. Let's go into dentistry then. If my dad wants to hand off something, it sounds like a great way to be, right? Well, it didn't take very long to realize that I am not, while I love everybody to have a good set of choppers and, Jean, I realized about 2 years into taking some medical classes that I just can't put my hands in somebody's mouth every single day, all day long. And I'm so scared of blood. So I changed my mind about halfway through, my sophomore year. And this is why I was dating a young man who had several brothers and sisters, and his eldest brother, the ninth in line, the eldest, was a chief photographer at the ABC station in Buffalo. And so when you're dating somebody, or if you're in a family, I don't know how many people you have in your family, but if you are constantly in contact with a large family, you know that there's a birthday every weekend, or something, or a show you have to go to. There is some kind of family event if it's not just getting together after church, right? So I found myself at almost every weekend or every other weekend cornering his brother Brian and saying, what did you do at work this week? Did you cover this? I heard this on the radio. I read about this in the paper. I saw this on the news. Did you go here? Did you go there? And he would tell me yes. And he told me all about it. And I realized I couldn't get enough. I was constantly asking him questions. And I, at that point, didn't realize this is what it was, but it was a natural curiosity to know what's happening around me, what's happening in my community, and who did you talk to, and who were the newsmakers, right? So then it kind of clicked after, 17 or 18 times, really just cornering poor Brian. I just said, this might be for me. So I took as many of my credits as I could and transferred them over into a communications major. A lot of them didn't transfer, so I went like 18 to 22 credits semester to really try and bump up the likelihood that I could graduate on time. And I got myself into the communications program and just really went all out to get the credits I needed and to get the experience I needed. And the one thing that I will say was most helpful in landing me a job on the way out was my internship. And that's why I pushed it so hard for you. And I think I told you this story, but for the sake of this interview, I'll tell it again. I got myself an internship at all three of the stations. I don't even remember how I pulled that off, but I did. So I was at ABC, CBS, and NBC. And my boyfriend's brother was at the ABC station. So there I found myself a place within the newsroom that they really needed somebody. And that was in their medical department. I wasn't particularly excited about it, but I had taken some classes, of course, because I was going to be a dentist. So I thought, okay, well, I can help produce this. So they needed, somebody to make the phone calls, set up the interviews, come up with decent stories that needed to be done. And I did all of that stuff for quite some time. And they, when they needed somebody to go out and do interviews, for example, when there wasn't a reporter on hand to do an entire package, which is the entire story, and they just needed somebody to get a soundbite, they would send me with a photographer and say, hey, go ask him about this. You're not going to be on camera or anything, but of course I would befriend the photographer and have him shoot a stand-up or something so that I would have a reel ultimately by the end of my internship. So it was, give and take, and they all kind of, knew we'd do that. I got busted I was not allowed to have 3 internships. I truly did not know I was not allowed to. So it's not like I went there maliciously and said,
So you're out hustling people, like
yeah.
you're making the most out of this. Like you're definitely telling me about like the struggle and the adversity you have to go through to get to where you are today. But and that's definitely great because like I feel a lot of times people don't like realize, don't seize the opportunity when they get it, and then when you have it, you really got to go for it. And so that's definitely amazing to hear.
Yeah,
um
I pushed them. I pushed internships hard, and I'm so glad you got one. I ended up that ended up helping me get my first job and my second job probably. So yes, I will say that again. I tried to do with that internship. I got some really good advice, and it was, if you see a hole, fill it. And what that means is, if there's something that's not being done, do it. So in their case, they had to hire somebody at ABC to get, when my internship was over, to be the medical producer, because I had a system, we were getting things done. And then when I left, they were like, oh boy, we better hurry up and fill this slot. So they had to get a paid position to fill my slot. So that was some of the best advice I got. If you see a hole, fill it. I mean, it's kind of a very good way to say, this is what needs to be done, so do it. But yeah, hustle is certainly something that I'm constantly doing here out on the streets. I don't stop until I think I've exhausted all of my resources. And I still do that. When I stop doing that, it's probably time to get out of the business. But here I am, almost 30 years later, and I'm still not satisfied until we've unturned every stone that we're able to, right? Some things are easier to find out than others, but sometimes the harder you go after something, the more satisfying it is when you get it, right? And that's just across the board. That's not just on a story or an interview or just information in general. It's I think across the board.
would you say that you kind of knew yourself and you found your identity before like finding out your passion for like broadcast and like just journalism overall, or like you were kind of still trying to figure that out before you figured out, okay, this is what I want to do?
My identity, I think I kind of always knew who I was, and that was a go-getter and a hustler, so I think that helped me, but I've fine-tuned it and I'm constantly doing it to this day. So I know who I am and what I want to do after all these years, but I think we're still finding things out about ourselves as we find ourselves in different situations. I mean, this goes into being a mom, but I had no idea. I was so laser focused on getting to the top of my game in this business that I had no desire to have a child, no desire. My husband, we had gone back and forth Brazil to Chicago for 12 years. And he ultimately said, well, I'm going to have to move to Chicago for us to have real quality time together. So he moved here 8 years ago, and we have a 3.5-year-old, and we had her late, but by the grace of God, she's healthy. So she's our one and done because of my age. But I will tell you that that's something I discovered about myself at a very late age. And I'll tell you, that is probably what I discovered about myself that I'm most proud of, that I work hardest at. And I'm able to separate work from home life. But when I'm with her and my husband at home, I am almost 100% there. I've always got my phone checking on what the latest news is. But that's what I work for still to this day. And I think when I'm in work, I'm able to, as long as I'm not in my office and my daughter's not like this, and I am able to really throw myself into it. Because if you're already at work, why not throw 100% into it, right? I mean, what's the point of doing 50% if you're already there? I'm already invested in this. I am here. I'm laser focused on what's going on with you right now, and then with the story on Ukraine, and I'm about to write for the 10. And after that, doing the 10 o'clock news and making sure that everything is in that newscast that we can possibly fit.
Wow, that's terrific. Like just describing everything you talked about so far. One key thing that stood out to me was the fact that you mentioned how like your family kind of just has been uplifting you throughout like your whole career and your life up until this point. But in connection to your family, I know you talked about your upbringing as far as like how you went from place to place before you ended up in New York, or New York State, right? For
Hey, yep, upstate
university. Was there like someone like a key mentor or like anyone in your family that like really like pushed you and motivated you to be like, hey, you can really do this. You just gotta apply yourself. Because I know everyone has to have someone.
And hopefully hopefully everybody does, right? That we really hope that people with focus can have somebody at least to rely on, if not to have uplift them, right? And I feel so fortunate to have had that, because I know there are a lot of people who don't have that, and you're absolutely right. We need that. For me, I think that it was interesting to see. So in the Midwest, a lot of people, where I was in Omaha, Nebraska, a lot of people had moms and dads, and, they would, it was very conventional over there in Nebraska. So here we come in, I came in second grade, and I had my mom and my grandma, didn't even know my dad at the time. It's not that unusual for kids, but it was not like you see that in a lot of places. But not in this particular little pocket. So I would go to the really palatial homes, and it was like a village. I don't know what it was about Omaha, Nebraska, but the parents would all come in, they'd swoop in and help each other out. And I'm old, so we would come in when, the street lights came on, you'd play your butt off and come in sweaty, and we'd go to one person's house, and one parent would say, okay, you can go over here and eat. My mom was always at work, so I was kind of like always with somebody else's family, which I loved, and the families did too. In fact, I just celebrated, after 35 years of being friends with them, with 7 of my girlfriends from high school. We celebrated together, just our birthdays, and that's just how tight our families are and were. But the person, so we would go to these, family dinners, and then one of my friends, they had this beautiful home, and I asked my mom, I said, don't you ever want to live in one of those really big homes? Because we were always in apartments, you could never even paint the walls. So now everyone in our condo, every wall is painted, because those little things that stick to you, right? So I said it would be really nice if we could even, rent a house like that, and, have a basement, or, some of these things. But I knew she was working hard, so I didn't want to push it. But she said to me, and I'll never forget it, she said, well, keep getting good grades, because good grades are money in the bank. Good grades are money in the bank. So I continued. I was at the top of my class for all of high school. I was on Who's Who, honor roll constantly. I missed maybe 1 or 2 days of school, because what am I going to do? Sit at home with my grandma? I'm just kidding. That was actually quite nice. But I really pushed to do well, to get good grades, because the money in the bank she was talking about was my first academic scholarship, right? She didn't know that my dad was going to make an offer to, help pay for some of it if I went to school in upstate New York. All she knew is you better make it by hook or by crook, right? So I just got really good grades, and I got myself an academic scholarship so that I didn't have to rely wholly on anybody. And it was just a really good fortune that he was able to help. And I went to a state school, so it wasn't like I went to Pepperdine or one of the places where you're paying so much, for a year of school. But I felt really driven by those words, and by seeing what other people had that I wanted, and I wanted to be able to get that for myself. It was really nice to be in a really nice house. And I remember, like, even my board games under my bed, it would always be musty, on the carpet under the bed, because the apartment, there was always some issue. And I wanted something better. And she kind of convinced me that the way to go about making things better, getting better for myself, was to do it. Get good grades, get a good education, and get yourself what you want, because everything's within reach if you make it so, right? You can give yourself the biggest, you can tell yourself enough times that you can't do something, and you can convince yourself it can't be done. On the other hand, you can tell yourself enough times that it can be done, and it will. I feel like you understand, because you kind of do it too. You're driven, and you find your goal, and you focus on it, and then it gets done. And so for you, I feel like what you set your mind to, whether it, whichever way you want to take it to ultimately get to the sports broadcasting, I think it's going to happen. I certainly hope so. I'm here to help make that happen. But I think sports reporting and analysis for you, if that's what you set your sights on, let it be.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. It's kind of all a mindset thing. At the end of the day, the person you're competing with is you. So you kind of set a limit as far as how high you want to go to. And
yeah,
it's real inspiring just to kind of hear everything you've talked about so far. And it's motivating, because it's like, it's giving me like an edge to say like, okay, I see she can do it. I can do it as well.
yes, you can. Absolutely. And it's interesting. You're sports oriented. I don't know how much you've read about Michael Jordan, but he said one of the things that really, I'll never forget, he was asked by an interviewer, did you ever think that you might not win? He goes, why would I go into a game thinking I'm going to miss a shot? For him, it just didn't make any sense. Why would I go into a game like that? You go into the game, and in this case, the game of life, thinking I'm going to win. And he sure did. He had an incredible amount of talent, but still, even when he was, just down with the worst flu and in the finals, he's still, he's like, we're going to win. I'll get over this afterwards.
No, definitely.
Not likening myself to Michael Jordan whatsoever. Make that clear. I'm saying his attitude is really something that I have admired for some time.
So I know this might be a little bit off topic, but since you brought up Michael Jordan, were you like in Chicago when the Bulls were winning the championships, or can you remember?
No, but I wouldn't have much to say about it. You should talk to Layla or somebody.
Oh, okay. I just thought I would ask, No, I came at the very, very end of it. So all that good stuff, games 3, 4, 5. I certainly knew about that though. Oh my gosh, what an era. I would have loved to cover that. I'm for the Cubs though, and even the White Sox. So you would say that you're a Cubs fan then, right?
No, I'm saying after 100. I'm saying that I covered it.
Oh, okay.
And I am White Sox.
No, but that's
find me taking a side. Oh no, don't you try and do that.
No, I mean everyone's got their own team. So like for me, I'm from the north side. I grew up a Cubs fan, but I understand why people are White Sox fans too.
Yeah, I love going for the underdog in general.
Mm-hmm.
So the Cubs were for so many decades.
No, definitely. Like it's something to talk about for sure.
Yeah.
So just like continuing with our interview so far, and kind of you talking about all the adversities and past struggles you faced that led you to where you are today. Did you ever feel like any burnout or otherwise lack confidence? Like in your career?
Yeah, I think everybody does at some point, right? Burnout. I think I felt a little of that during the beginning, especially of the pandemic, when it was so difficult to even find a place to go to the bathroom while covering news. We were still out there. We never worked from home at that time. And there was so much civil unrest and so many things going on. There was just such anger toward us in general out in the field. There was a little tinge of that then, but I think also when I was first starting and I had my stack of no's from news directors, but I sent I sent my resume to Philadelphia and these huge markets I had no business sending them to. But I'm like, the other good piece of advice that somebody gave me was let them tell you no. Kind of goes along with what you and I were just talking about, your own worst critic, but let someone else tell you no. Go ahead and take the shot.
Okay, no, I definitely can agree with that, and it seems like you're just a motivated person overall and pretty optimistic. So like you probably don't have any like real challenges when it comes to like just going through it, because it's what you do. And ultimately what you really like with what you do, like when you work and like it doesn't feel like work, it's just more so feels like a passion. So that's what it seems like for you.
Most of the time. But I mean, when you're covering heartache and things like that, it always helps to put things in perspective. If we're speaking to somebody, like I said before, if they lost someone, or if they lost their home in a tornado or whatever it is, I'm able to go home to my husband and my daughter and a home that's still standing, so I put things in perspective so that I don't get down on too much and say, well, I've offered our camera and microphone so we could give them a voice when they didn't have one, right? That's really kind of what we do, seeking the truth and giving people voices and telling their stories. So I think when you get down like that, you just put in perspective. Look what's going on in Ukraine. These people are leaving their homes not knowing if they'll ever go back, right? Millions of refugees now. And so I think, I mean, I've been doing that because day in, day out, we deal with so much negativity, right? Just in general, whether it's brought on by a human being or Mother Nature or whatever it is, but we deal with that in general across the map. And so in news, we cover that a lot. So putting things into perspective is an important way to get through those feelings that you're asking about.
Do you feel with like your profession, like there's like any like fear of any like uncertainty or like anything that can like go wrong that like you have experience or you even just think about till this day while working?
Well, I've learned when to back off. I have had somebody show me a gun. I've had somebody spit at me. I've had
Seriously?
push me. Yeah, I think you just learn. I mean, these are people. So like with the gun situation, we went to a house and there were a bunch of gentlemen on the porch, and somebody had a child had died. I went up to the porch without my photographer. He was way down the street. I didn't want to be threatening with a camera, but he knew who I was. I had my hat on with the NBC, and without I could hear somebody saying something under his breath, but I didn't know what it was. And then as I got closer, the other one showed me like this, look, we don't want to talk to you. So I left. Was I a little bit nervous afterwards? If I would never, I didn't tell my family about that until years later, because I don't want them to say, well, don't you dare go back, Yeah. But I mean, that's emotion talking, and you learn to have a thick skin. And he wasn't threatening me. I don't think. He was just saying, you're not wanted here. Go away. Here's what we're dealing with. And this is also a dangerous place. I left, and there was no, actually, I don't even think there were words said. It was, here's what it is. But that comes with the territory too, and that's, it's okay. But being, at the Van Dyke protest, some guy gave me the finger as I was coming up, just because we were in a news van, and he was angry, and he was not happy with what the protesters were saying. and he was clearly upset more with the Black Lives Matter group standing behind him and giving me the finger because he knew we were going to talk to representatives. So I'm like, well, it's not really personal, but there's only so much you can take before you just say, okay, that wasn't, but as long as you know where those things are directed. Typically we'll walk into situations where people have heightened emotions one way or another. And we're not really trained on as behavioral science professionals or first responders, but you really get used to it after a little while. So I think emotions in general, to get to your question, are really important to understand and deal with when you temper where an interview is going to go or not.
Okay. So do you feel like ethics and like overall that's like really important, like within your industry, like is that something like you really value at NBC, working for NBC, or just overall with talking to people and interacting with it? Like how do you, like, I guess my main question too is like, how do you level it off, like where you're communicating with someone and like a certain boundary not to cross, like
well, because I go into every interview I can think of, thinking this is somebody, I put myself in their shoes. How would I feel if a reporter came up to me and I just saw this or experienced this? I think as long as you go in knowing we're human, I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm an aunt, I'm a teacher now, and I'm a coworker, I'm a friend. So if I go into a situation, being completely honest and completely transparent, I tell people all the time when we meet, use me, if they're still looking for somebody on the street who ran over your grandma or something, use me to tell your story. I say that, and I mean it in the most general sense. You have to be able to use journalists and the people in the press who are telling your story in the right way. How you can leaflet all you want, but you're only going to reach a few hundred people. Tell your story and put all the stuff that's on your sign. Tell that to me. We can tell a couple 100,000 people tonight, and you have a bigger platform. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, definitely. I only have two more questions. I know
Okay.
you're very busy. So my first question is, like with kind of just your past experiences, or even your current position at NBC, what is something you've taken from your past and applied to like your daily routine at NBC today?
I think kind of what we just talked about, to be honest with you, just being a person and not a robot, and not saying I have a job to do, but understanding that this person has a life to live after we speak to them, for example, understanding that there could be retaliation for them speaking with us, for example. We run into that a lot. Just being helpful in term, as much as it, let me start over. I think that being helpful and being pushy tend to sometimes get overlapped. There is a time when you have to be empathetic. Even if you haven't had the same experience, you have to at least try to sympathize and put yourself in their shoes and say, what if this was me? How do I want this story told? And how much can I say without putting myself in jeopardy? I'm talking about like an interviewee. I think they think about those things when they speak with us. And so I go in making sure that we honor their space, their privacy if they need it, and their mission. Typically, the mission is to tell a story on a bigger platform. That's what we're here for. But it's got to be the truth, right? So we have to vet that and make sure that what they're saying jives with what either, the witnesses and police say, or, I'm just speaking hypothetically. But in terms of going into work with a certain attitude, it would be one of honesty and fairness.
I speak to that, and it seems like you're a very compassionate person and you're always thinking about people. Now transitioning into my last question, which is like the main one out of all the things we've talked about today. What advice would you give to a student like me that wants to work in the broadcast industry, in news and in journalism and news, or sports communication?
I would say 1, you already know it, get an internship. 2, get involved and ask a lot of questions in any organization that you think might be helpful, whether it be NAHJ, NABJ, SBJ, ONA, and find out what jobs are opening by checking websites and what jobs are already open too. And also be on time and be aggressive in your search, because, as we have said a couple times already today, I think that when you set your sights on something, you are very likely, especially somebody like yourself, who's got all the tools right here, you are very likely to succeed. And if you align yourself with someone like me who can keep their eye on an internship opening, for example, and send you the email the minute she gets it, and you can also help yourself along. And it makes me feel good to know that I'm helping somebody who is going to succeed and help this profession continue to do good things.
Well, no, that's definitely great to hear. And I appreciate all the advice you've given me so far. It's really opened my eyes as far as all the amount of opportunities that are out there to go grab. So I really appreciate you just talking about your past experiences and ways to improve on the skills you have to get you to the next level.
I appreciate you, and I think you've asked some very good questions too. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. Thank you. So I just want to end the interview by saying thank you so much, Natalie, for taking time out of your day to just be with me. I hope to stay in touch with you. And to those watching, thank you for joining me. This has been Anthony Ayeni with Natalie Martinez, lead reporter and news anchor for NBC Channel 5 News. Thank you, Natalie.